2023 brought us a stunning amount of amazing feature-length films, but it also brought us some of the worst.
Welcome to Freddy Fazbear's, where fantasy and fun come to life.
Okay.
Welcome to The Rewind. These are the best and worst movies of 2023. Before we begin, make sure to give this video a like and hit that subscribe button for good luck. The world of cinema can surprise us with sheer spectacle and quality, or lack thereof, despite how much we spend on tickets and popcorn. So it can be a gamble when you decide to invest into an experience that could put you on either end. We here at The Rewind, we like to cap things off on a positive note, but today, we'll be structuring things a little differently. Rather than getting the worst selections out of the way, we're saving those for the second half of today's discussion. But rest assured, we've picked the best of both categories.
Alright, let's go.
The best of 2023. You've definitely heard of these incredible movies. These not only had huge success at the box office, but also managed to be cultural phenomena in their own right. Marvel never holds back when it comes to their Spider-Man movies, and the long-awaited sequel to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse did not disappoint. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is a masterpiece in every way possible. It's visually appealing, has a stellar soundtrack, amazing performances by the cast, a great story, and well-crafted characters. 10 out of 10.
We are supposed to be the good guys.
We are.
Of course, we can't mention Marvel without talking about the MCU films. It is unfortunate to admit that many MCU films have been nothing but, well, mediocre at best these last few years. However, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 went above and beyond and closed off the Guardians saga on a strong note. Seeing Rocket in peril did get us a little worked up at times, and regardless of how you feel about the new Gamora, we can all agree that the movie was very enjoyable. And as always, the soundtrack slaps.
Come on, Drax. Seriously, dude?
Video game movies have only gotten better in recent years, and 2023 was Mario's time to shine. The granddaddy of video games himself, Mario's origin story is fully realized in the Super Mario Bros. Movie, where our Italian plumbers have their humble beginnings in Brooklyn, eventually drifting apart when they stumble on the Mushroom Kingdom. Saying the movie was faithful to the games would be a severe understatement. Every scene is jam-packed with Easter eggs, and every minute is a good time. We would have liked less licensed music and more of the iconic tracks in the Mario series, but that didn't deter from the movie's spectacular performance in the box office. The same can be said about another iconic game franchise, Five Nights at Freddy's. The first adaptation of a potential cinematic trilogy finally aired this year, with just as many secrets and hidden lore details as you'll find in the games themselves. Featuring many notable YouTube cameos and incorporating fan-made ideas in canonical ways, the movie was highly praised by fans, despite what you might hear from the general critics. The PG-13 rating kept the movie from going all out in terms of gore, but, there's always next time.
I was just calling to see if that job that you offered was still available.
Yes.
If there's one movie that caused a cultural shift, man, it's the Barbie movie. Everyone dressed in pink to see this film, and we'd be lying if we said we didn't join in on the fun ourselves. This film was everything we've ever wanted and more. And dare I say, sublime? First of all, its marketing was on point, and not only did it have a great message, but it was also a hilarious trip. Barbie is also the highest ever grossing film directed by a woman, which is a standard fitting for the doll's legacy. On the other end of the spectrum was Oppenheimer, premiering the exact day as Barbie with a completely juxtaposing vibe. So those who wore pink most likely had a layer of all black underneath when they watched Oppenheimer directly after. Considered to be writer and director Christopher Nolan's best film to date, Oppenheimer is, well, in short, an experience. Even for those who went into it with zero expectations, viewers were quite literally blown away by the artistry.
Truman needs to know what's next. What's next?
This is the generation of reviving old franchises with sequels that follow up their predecessors decades later. We saw this with films like Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, as well as the fourth entry in the Matrix saga, with Keanu Reeves reprising his role as Neo. This year, Keanu also returned as John Wick in its fourth installment, revitalizing yet another iconic movie franchise. Some of us were a bit skeptical considering most films that tread old ground tend to be mediocre at best, but 4 films in and John Wick is still unbeatable. It's the neo-noir stylization for us, and I mean, Keanu Reeves is simply a badass.
Last words, Winston?
Just have fun out there.
The sewers of New York City reintroduce us to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with a fresh new reboot under their belt. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem was so much fun. It's honestly the only animated TMNT film that brings out the true charm of these characters and highlights the liveliness of New York City. On top of that, it had a great cast, which I'm sure will make the sequels just as successful.
I need another drink.
The worst of 2023. How did we end up here? From the devastatingly mediocre to the flat-out terrible, we can't give any of these movies real credit. Kudos for trying, but did they really? Okay, you all remember Zoey 101, yeah? One of the best shows on Nickelodeon in the mid-2000s, Zoey 101 was always loved by fans even after its abrupt finale. For years, people have been clamoring for a reunion or even a sequel of some sort, which they finally delivered this year in the form of Zoey 102, a feature film taking place many years after the original series took place. Not so much of a sequel as it is a long-winded "Where Are They Now" segment. The charm found in the original was just no longer present. The writing, the humor, the tone, none of it is there. It's a perfect example that some sequels are just better off not happening.
I would kill to go back to PCA.
I'm sure we'd all love to go back.
Speaking of bringing back franchises from the dead, we've got a few live-action Disney remakes based on classic animated films. Peter Pan and Wendy was not only disappointing and tasteless, but also a huge departure from what the original film established. Combating societal norms was the one thing the movie focused on, changing nationalities in many of its central characters and using the film as a message rather than telling a compelling story. A good handful of fans did still enjoy the film, but the vast majority were left with a sour taste in their mouth. Things were no different when it came to The Little Mermaid, suffering from many of the same shortcomings and changing its main character much to the dismay of most fans. Whether you love it or hate it, the overall feedback was more or less just what you'd expect.
He's a human. You're a mermaid.
That doesn't make us enemies.
Sometimes a movie has so many sequels that the fad just dies out by the time they get past their 4th or 5th installment with little to no changes. But somehow, there are 10 Fast and the Furious movies, so it's no surprise that Fast X wasn't necessarily considered a masterpiece. The only factor that seemed to keep critics from giving primarily negative reviews was Jason Momoa's performance, and we can't fault them for that. But I think we can all agree that the franchise has been long overdue for a refresh.
Let's race!
Some sequels don't even need to happen, which was the case for Magic Mike's Last Dance. The general consensus between audiences and critics seemed to be that the dancers were great, but the film was once again lacking in plot. While Channing Tatum and Salma Hayek are amazing, we're still unsure how Magic Mike got another sequel.
So,
Having the right cast might seem like enough to save a film from disaster, but it can still fail just as badly without proper direction. You People should have been a great film given its cast, but it kind of just made people a little uncomfortable, and not in a good way. It had its funny moments, but could have been so much more, even with the message it was trying to convey. House Party is one of those movies you either love or hate, but the remake of the 1990 film seems to have more haters than admirers. While it has its moments, I think most people can agree that House Party should have just been left alone.
Your hairline is perfect. Anyone who says otherwise is just jealous.
But we know that Hollywood isn't going to leave anything alone if it sounds like potential dollar signs, and this year it was Knights of the Zodiac that was poorly shafted into its movie adaptation. Knights of the Zodiac seemed to disappoint critics and fans of the manga series. Although the visuals were occasionally appealing, they just weren't enough to make up for the film's weak storytelling.
Thought you were the only knight in town?
Those may have been awful experiences, but nothing comes close to our last entry. What happens when you take one iconic Disney franchise and decide to turn it into a horrific slaughter film? Yep, you get the worst movie to ever come out this year. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. I'm sure we could have just posted a still image of this film with zero explanation and everyone would completely understand. Why was this film made? Okay, despite its poor execution and staggeringly low ratings, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey was somehow a box office hit. Even more surprising, a sequel is currently in the works. What did you think of our movie picks? Before you leave, don't forget to give this video a like and leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Check out these other videos from The Rewind, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you don't miss any of our future uploads.